Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Good morning. How are things?
Well, we know already, don't we? Interesting. How about that?
It is interesting. That's what I was thinking too.
Interesting. Ah, good. Things are good.
Things are good.
Yeah.
And you said interesting. It just reminds me, and it's a good reminder for everybody else. As soon as we say that, we take ourselves into a neutral space and open to receiving whatever that information was about. Whatever you're experiencing or it's in your experience right this moment. It's just stating out loud, isn't that interesting? Or even in your mind, isn't that interesting? Even when someone's showing up in your day that feels kind of crappy, or just looking at them and thinking, it's not interesting. Because sometimes if you have everybody that are kind of approaching you and they're kind of feeling crappy, you kind of check in with yourself and
Yeah.
wonder why all this mirroring is going on.
Right. And I started using that word several years ago when I was in the practice of moving from being judgmental to not being so judgmental. And so I really noticed it. I mean, I've been judgmental for a lot of years, but I really noticed it when the whole fad started of people going to the store or out in public in their pajamas, and the judgment that came up, and then hearing other people's, judgment statements. And I was like, okay, if we're going to practice a non-judgmental way of being, how can I move myself with ease from looking at this from a judgmental mindset? And it was, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? And that's what I do. Just like what you said, when people show up in disgruntled ways, or typically it's the drama related situations that really get our attention, and where we really become judgmental and critical and opinionated. And instead of going into that space, which, as we know, affects our energy, that to just be more of a witness to, and putting ourselves in that space by saying, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting how I'm showing up with this judgmental mindset? Why is that? And then that's where I go into self-inquiry. Why is it bothering me? Why do I have a judgment against people who show up in public in their pajamas? And it came down to for me, it was a confidence thing. That they were confident enough to be in public like that. They're confident enough in themselves to show up like that. That was not me. And it was confidence. I didn't have the confidence to show up in public in my pajamas. It's like, no, right? Because why? Because then people will look at me and judge me and criticize me. And so and of course, not wanting that type of attention. So do I go out in public in my pajamas? No. And do I have confidence? Yes. Am I judgmental of other people who do it? No. If that's how they want to show up in life, so be it. It's not my business.
Yeah, I'm all about the leggings. So you pretty much see me always in leggings, sometimes jeans. That's pretty much it. That's my comfort. So it's whatever's comfortable for myself. Before it would have been like, oh, I got to have this done and this done. I've even gone in and done stuff without makeup on. I used to never do stuff like that because
Yeah.
that's not what I learned. I learned my mom always had her face on before she went out, even though she was beautiful without doing all that stuff. But when you see someone doing these things all the time, it just becomes that's part of it was part of my habit. Or it could be the opposite, right? We can go through life and have had an experience of something we didn't like, and we make sure we don't do that ever again. We go the opposite direction. If you have a parent that drinks all the time, you're like, nope, not going to drink. That's a whole nother freaking ball game. Because if you nope, not doing that, then you have the partner that drinks, or your kids end up drinking. There's always something that shows up for us to finally become in that space. This is my perspective, to come into the space of being neutral about a subject. It's not having an opinion one way or the other. It's not having a judgment. Do I judge? Yeah, I still judge. I still catch myself judging. And depending on the group of people that I'm around, I might recognize it. And my judgment's not the same as it would have ever been before, and even, looking at someone, when I see someone that's living on the street, I don't even judge them anymore, because before, and I say judge them anymore, I might look at them and think, oh God, they really probably, this isn't a very good life for them probably, or whatever. And recognizing this is where they're at on their journey, and maybe they're having a great time in this space. So it's not to have a judgment of it. And I do find myself, now that the judgments have backed off and away from me, I do find myself easily saying, well, isn't that interesting? Or questioning myself, well, why is this showing up for me right now? How do I do this? Because this is showing up for me to notice something inside of myself.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for growth, right? If I see someone doing something, if I hear someone judging themselves so harshly, oh God, I've been the person that's judged myself so harshly. So it's just taking the time to honor myself and love myself and know that I'm perfect, because we're everything. I don't know if we talked about it last week, but to recognize when we can look outside and look at the diamonds, when it was snow on the ground, it looked like diamonds, literally. When I went to town on Friday, because there was snow, none of the snow really had melted. And I'm looking out and it's like, oh my God, it's like diamonds everywhere, the way the light was hitting it. It's just so beautiful. And I made it to town safely, but to be in that space of that love of appreciation, then I've also got to have that love and appreciation in myself, because otherwise I really don't take in the whole spectrum. If we're everything, then I'm not taking in the whole spectrum of myself being the snow and shining like diamonds. So it's like this whole process that I'm starting to recognize, but it's an internal dialogue. It's this internal conversation that I'm having, that I'm learning to look at things so differently than I had done before. And why it's so important to love ourselves, why it's so important for us to take time for ourselves to do the meditation. If you're not doing it, then you've got some bullshit story. And I say bullshit because obviously I did, but as soon as I recognize why I'm doing it, that there was a reason for me to do the meditation, for me, it changed everything. Now it's like I make time to do it. I'm finding ways to do it. Now I'm trying to figure out but get into the practice of doing it 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. So doing at least a couple of times a day, and then probably to even do it more, and exploring other types of meditation. There's so many different types of meditation. There's people's point of views on meditation. So all that has spurred this whole next phase of my life, I guess, because it just feels better. It feels better where I'm at. I'm less judgmental, because that feels like shit most of the time. Now I do go through, and I don't call it judgment, but if I'm looking at you today, I'm like, I really appreciate the colors you have on. I really appreciate how it makes you glow. I'm not in a space of judgment. I'm in a space of appreciation. And maybe I am at that time labeling things because I'm noticing the color of the shirt, right? Instead of just recognizing that your energy is just amazing. That's all. Just to be in that space of that amazingness, instead of breaking it down to such teeny tiny details that really don't even matter.
Yeah, it's the inner being that shines, and then the external part of us, how we dress it, so our physical body, how we dress it, can enhance that beauty. So so doing the hair, doing the makeup, wearing the jewelry, wearing the colors that go with your skin color and your hair. And I remember when you were talking about judgment, I remember I was also a person who every single day hair and makeup was done. Now I would wear jeans and t-shirts, sneakers. That's my go-to. That's my comfort zone. But every single day, didn't matter what day it was, every day. And the first time, so okay, introverts don't want to be judged and criticized, just saying. And so I have that background. That's where I come from, as an introvert, being an introvert. And the very first time I did a Facebook Live with no makeup was so hard. But you know what? Guess what? I didn't die. I lived through it. And I've done many more since then, without hair and makeup. I just pop on, do a quick live and be off, So at the same time, I also recognize that beautifying the external adds confidence and puts me, it's also a state of mind of what I'm going to do for that day. So if I stay in my pajamas and sit here and work at my desk, I don't feel as energized as when I do when I get up and do the hair and do the makeup and get dressed and then sit here. It's a different energy. And I think too, it's a subconscious connection with being dressed and being in pajamas. That's one thing when you talk about meditation. One of the things that I hear mentioned quite frequently is if you sit, so in the evenings, if you're sitting with your spouse and you sit in a certain spot to watch TV, don't sit in that spot to meditate. Find, if you can, and if it's available to you, sit in a different spot. Right? Because it's an association with the brain and the body. I just find that fascinating. I always do. I always find it fascinating how that's all connected and how the energy of it will shift depending on how we associate those different sensations in different places. You'll notice that even with people, you mentioned being around certain people and there's judgment type conversation. Like, it's easy, similar with family, it's easy to revert back to that little girl that everybody knows in the family when you go to a family function, but then you leave and you're like, what the hell just happened? That's not who I am. That's not, it's the association, it's that subconscious programming. So I always just find that fascinating. I still do it today. Like, a year ago, almost a year ago, I went and visited my mom and some family members, and I could feel my like physically feel me going, the energy going back into that space that everybody knows, quote unquote, because that's who they associate with, that Amy back then, right? And noticing the conversations and how I showed up in the conversations. And I would go in the bathroom like, what is happening right now? This is not my practice anymore. It's like the practice is not to practice that. So, and just the one thing I could just tell people is just have ease and grace with yourself when you're having these experiences, because transformation it's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
It's a practice. It's an opportunity. Like, we don't have to go into the space and be in that same space, but we can recognize where there's tendencies because you're in that same environment for it to change. I would say early on, especially with the meditation part that you were saying, I would say early on for anybody that's starting out with meditation, make sure that you don't, do like you said, find a different space to sit in so you're not getting into that comfortable space and it's like, I don't feel like doing anything. I'm just going to watch TV. But then the practice is, once you're meditating, it's be able to be in that space. It's being able to be wherever you can be at. And it doesn't matter what noises are going on around you. It doesn't matter what seat you're sitting in. You're in that space. But I would say in the beginning, if you have a habit of, not following through, and this is the easy place to sit and, just turn off life completely, that's probably not the ideal place for you to sit in. Because then you turn off that whole practice of even wanting to meditate.
Yeah,
so all of it is a practice.
Don't lay on your bed. In the beginning of your meditation practice, don't lay on your bed to meditate.
Yeah. I've laid on the floor. I'll lay on the floor. I'll lay on a yoga mat. I'll sit. Sometimes I just see what feels better for me. And sometimes one feels better for me than the other on different occasions. And then, like yesterday, I wanted to do some yoga and I wanted to meditate. So then I found something not even totally on the thing. It was barely any yoga, but it was meditation, sitting in yoga poses, or a couple of yoga poses. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that was quick. It was over in 20 minutes. It was done in 20 minutes, but it was two birds, one stone, if you want to call it that. But I took care of two things to sit there and acknowledge myself. It's to give time for myself. I find this interesting. My neck's been bothering me for a while to different degrees. And I tell people, I'm a freaking massage therapist. So I tell people, it's better to get on it right away, to take care of it right away. And I tell myself a couple of days ago, it was so bad that I had to take half a muscle relaxer just to be able to just get past the migraine area. And I know it was coming from my neck. Meditation probably would have helped in that space, but that's what I ended up doing because I couldn't think. I couldn't get past where I was at. And then I thought, why am I struggling? Why am I forcing myself to be in this state instead of allowing myself to go to the chiropractor? It's $35 for God's sakes. Really, there's really no excuse. There's not time. Well, it's just making the time for yourself. It's taking the time for yourself. So that's what I get to do that today. But the question was for myself. I was like, why are you making yourself struggle? Why are you forcing this on yourself? Why are you, if my migraine was so bad and I couldn't deal with even thinking about meditating or doing anything besides taking a half of a muscle relaxer, which, I took it before I went to bed. So, there's that, but there were so many different ways for me. I feel like I could have done things differently, but it had escalated to such a point that I couldn't even think. I was beyond that part. Just when you're in that space, I couldn't get beyond. I just kept trying to find ways to make my neck feel better in my head. And it wasn't paying out.
We could call that transformation tools amnesia. Because
if you go into that space, you lose connection with all the rest of the stuff. So the same thing. As soon as you get into that space with your family, you could either lose touch with everything or have an awareness of it, like we started out the conversation. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that I used to participate in these conversations? Isn't that interesting? It's just so simple. And it just so simply takes you into a neutral space.
Yeah. And, somebody in your day triggers you in some way that you get into that space of maybe a little bit of anger. Like the whole toolbox, the toy box is gone. Like you just totally forget. I know, like I have a slew of transformation tools to use. Like I have so many certificates of training and stuff. I've had those moments where I get triggered, bam, and I stay in it because I'm not choosing to utilize one of my tools to move that energy or move me out of that space. And so it's, Bev and I, we've been practicing this for a while, and we still have our moments. So,
and we're in that space for such a brief amount of time, and having an awareness of it. That's why you don't beat yourself up about this stuff, because you recognize you're still going through a human experience. And even though we've done so well, we've been here so if I've been here for 52 years, it's probably like 52 minutes, really. It probably is really nothing at all, a blip. And it's just honoring where we're at. It's just being in that space. And if we're judging someone else, then we're not honoring where we're at. We're all, because we judge ourselves. It's just honoring where we're at. We're all in a different space, not better than the other, but just a different space. And playing such great roles, because sometimes, well, I not even say sometimes, the most important thing is the trigger. We want the triggers. We do, of course, with grace and ease, but we want the triggers because the triggers help us to evolve. We always say, I want to go do this. It's like saying, I'm going to go on this trip and I've already got this bag packed, and I'm not going to open it up and look at what's inside of it. I'm going to go ahead and carry this bag with me and go on this trip. And then you get there and you got winter clothes and you're in Maui, and it doesn't serve you very well. So it's just helping bring forward to highlight these areas that we can work through, that we don't have to carry with us. Because I don't want to carry a snowsuit to Maui. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for us to carry our shit around with us all day long anyways. Yeah. It just doesn't. There's no sense to be made in that.
And we are We are made to feel emotion, all emotions. So, and just in that, that's giving yourself permission that it's okay to feel that, whatever spectrum it's on. I'm listening to the Tapping Solutions Summit right now, and was just listening to Cheryl Richardson this morning, and she's like, when I get in that space where she was talking about worry, when you get stuck on a thought and you just keep rehashing it and thinking about it and feeling those disgruntled emotions about it. She's like, I just tell myself, come back, sweetheart. Come back right here, right now. Come back right here, right now, sweetheart. It's okay. Just to bring herself back into her body and back into where she's at right here, right now. And then, the other thing she said is she just starts looking around. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What can you feel, whether it's emotional or tangible or tactile, So, I mean, those so simple. It's so simple. And she's talking when she's like, come back, sweetheart. It's because, we talk about that little person inside that's running the show. It's her little girl inside that's worried or scared or, feeling that fear. And she's just letting her little person know she's okay. She's safe. Come back right here. Right. And I would say, I'm an adult now and I got your back. This shit ain't going to happen anymore. We know better now. We've learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you first started talking about that, it sounded just like that's the first thing I thought. That's just like grabbing your little child's hand and like, come up here. This is actually pretty cool. Let's check this out. Let's have a good time. You're safe. All these different things, all these different emotions that we get to feel, and we get to feel the emotions. And how do you want to perceive it? How do you want to process it? Well, I want to process it where I'm always used to talk about finding the gold nugget. It's like, I want to process it, finding the gold nugget in everything. And it sucks when we lose people, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for growth. And I say lose people when they drop their skin suit and they're like, I'm done with this people experience. This is what's happening. This is where, they're not here in our physical anymore. We don't see them in the physical, but they're still here. And it's just knowing that, when they leave like that, there's such a growth opportunity from our human perspective, and such a growth opportunity from feeling a gambit of emotions, really. It's funny. I was actually listening to Next Level Soul. He was interviewing Sheila Gillette again recently. She channels Theo, and he had asked her a question about suicide. And he says, well, what do you think about suicide? And she says, well, everyone commits suicide. On a soul level, our soul knows when we're leaving, that's a suicide. So when she said it, it was like, wow, that really hit me in a different way. And it's because I don't judge people for that anyways, because sometimes life is too fucking hard. Sometimes it is. Sometimes they can't make sense of it. Sometimes they've got like a migraine times 1,000 that they live with every single day, and maybe they can't get there, or they live in this place of perfection, and perfection we know is never achievable. You might have moments where you feel like you're perfect, that there's perfection, but you're always self-doubting all these things. It's amazing if we allow ourselves on the growth path, though, to not follow through on that, because the things that I felt were hard, or even I can use the example of even drawing art, that I had such a big deal. I was always trying to be perfect at everything I did. I couldn't do it like the other person did it, so I just didn't do it, because I was never meant to do it like the other person did it. And that's the whole thing with a lot of people that are living right now. It's just not doing something the way somebody else did it. All they're doing is showing you what's possible. Everything, but I wouldn't have known that if I didn't get the opportunity. We've talked about that before. If I decided at that time that I was dipping out, but I do know, for me, I physically know on a soul level, I'll know that it's time to go. I'll have an inkling. I'll have an idea. And I guess that's the suicide, because from the soul perspective, it's like, okay, that's it, I'm out. And then you just see my skin suit.
I have a couple things to say about that. One is, this being on this on this planet is, what would be, Bev, you might know, what would be like one of the hardest obstacle races to do? Oh, there's the Ninja Warrior. Watch that on TV, the Spartan race.
Yes, yes, yes.
So think about that as life. Like, we're in it, and it, like you said, it's fucking hard. Like it, man, it's rough. And we've gotten a lot of bumps and bruises over the years. And I've thought about that, it's like, okay, if people who use substances, depend on substances to get through life, such as alcohol or prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs, things like that, caffeine, sugar, they're actually dependent on it to face their day every day. I've had this thought, like these conversations in my head, that's comparable. That's like a slow suicide. I mean, you're breaking your body down faster than it would if you were to meditate and, hydrate and eat healthy foods and all that. And even the foods we intake. And so it's interesting that I haven't thought about it in a while, actually, but it's interesting that I haven't seen that video yet. And I listen to Alex's podcast a lot. But I just find it interesting that you brought that up, because that kind of answers a question for me. It's like, it is a different perspective, and I like seeing things from a different perspective. Some people may not like the terminology, and that's okay. But I'm the type of person, I'm like open to hearing things in different ways and just see what feels and what resonates with me. And that to me, it makes so much sense. It's like, well, yeah, that sooner or later, your spirit's going to be like, okay, we don't need the people no more. We got our lessons. We're out. Gotta go now. And we don't know how that's going to happen, right? Seriously, being at like the Grand Canyon, there's in some areas, there's no fencing, and they're taking pictures and they back up and fall off the freaking cliff. Seriously, that's how they go. And I'm like, we don't know. And so when spirit's ready, but I hear you when you say, if you've been living with a migraine or living with that type of deep-seated perfectionism, that there's so many light workers on this planet sharing so many ways to be able to heal your body through meditation. It takes meditation. I'm sorry, people, we cannot get around it. I tried for several years to get around it. I was like, everything I read.
The thing is, why do we do that? Because it's something, because it's simple. I mean, I don't even understand why, because for me, that was a thing for such a long time, until I recognized why for myself. I had to have a reason why.
Yeah. I hear you. I had my excuses. And I skated it. Everything I read said, meditate. Every teacher I listened to said meditate. Every one of them had a meditation practice. And I'm like, no, this girl's not going to ever meditate in this lifetime. So we need to figure out another way. And now guess what? I'm meditating 45 minutes every single day for the past 2 weeks.
Because there's no other way. It's just that simple. When you're pulling your own freaking cards and it's telling you constantly, the first few cards are talking meditation, each one of them. It's like, come on, people, really?
You're just like, meh.
Because it's not the answer we're looking for, right? We want that magical pill. I want you just to touch my nose and I remember everything.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like, oh wow, this is so beautiful right here. Yeah, solid.
So what I was getting at is that there's so many light workers on this planet who are teaching us how to change our we can physically change, we can change our DNA, we can change our genetics, we can change our bodies and heal it. And we have several people on the planet showing us how to do that. But if you are living with a migraine and you're depending on doctors, and doctors are telling you we can't figure anything out, we don't know what to do with you, this is all we got, and you're leaning into that, then you're not open. You are not open to other modalities. You're not coming into alignment with it. And then you also get into that space where you lose all hope. Like, if the doctors can't help me, who's going to be able to help me? Freaking nobody, right? So you shut down instead of being open to the universe to say, hey, I got this thing going on. I don't know how to handle it. Doctors can't do anything for it. I need something else. I need other answers. I need other guidance. And when it comes to you, Wayne Dyer made a comment one time because he was talking about having crystal quartz crystal chairs. And he said his comment was around, if they said that you're sitting on a quartz crystal chair every day would heal hemorrhoids, I'm going to do it. I am open to anything that's going to help me heal my body. Right. And, people think, well, carrying a stone in your pocket's too woo-woo. That's kind of weird. You know what? Prove that it's otherwise. If I believe it's going to help me, guess what? It's going to help me. It's just like that placebo effect. When you believe taking that little sugar pill, when you do not know it's a sugar pill, it's been tested many times. A doctor will give you a quote unquote prescription, and you take it because you believe it's going to heal your body, and then find out, your symptoms go away, you feel great, and then find out it was actually a sugar pill. That tells us how powerful our brain is. It tells us how powerful we are with our body. And so it's so important. I'm not going to say you have to, but it's so important to be open to other modalities that don't fit your box. I know a girl right now saying so many prayers for her. She's been struggling with pancreatic cancer for, I think a little over a year now. And she's been doing all the treatments, the chemo and all the stuff. And they've come to a space now where they said there's nothing else that's going to help her. And, it's like, but there is. I'm on that other side of the coin. I'm like, but there is, if you would choose to do it. But when you just get in that space of acceptance that this is it, I'm done. Or she's like, I'm not giving up, but there's nothing more they can do, meaning the doctors, meaning the medical field. And I'm just like, but there's so much out there that if you would apply yourself, So it's honoring her journey as well, and saying lots of love and prayers, and that she's come this far, and she's done a lot of great things over this past year with her friends and family, and made a lot of great memories. And so that's her journey, and that's okay.
Yeah. And maybe that's right where she's at, which also leads into the other thing, because sometimes we know of ways that can help someone else. We really do, but that doesn't serve the other person. Just because we know, that doesn't serve the other person. They need to know. Yeah. Just like you said, it's the whole placebo effect. It really is. That has a lot. I mean, we could call it the placebo, but when we can get into this true knowing space and knowing what's possible, or being open to what's possible, and then you're talking about the migraine, and to me, the migraine is like, what was I shutting off? When we have a migraine like that, I must have been really holding on, and I wasn't really like thinking about things, because I haven't done that for a long time. To get stuck in the mind, really, I'm witnessing a lot of this stuff. I'm witnessing myself being the myself that learned how to be myself from birth to now. So that, which has been interesting, but it's just not being in that same space anymore. And I've had people, gosh, I was just talking to someone the other day, and it's amazing how the information flows through us. But gosh, when the other person's not receptive to it and not willing to do something, and that this is the one thing that we have a knowing. That just means they're not online. They're just not online with the information right now. Because sometimes we do think that's the only way, is to go through the doctor thing. And then it's really breaking a lot of that stuff down and finding out why is it showing up. It's really looking deeper. And then maybe this was her role anyways. Maybe this is her role because because what was a part of the conversation, there's so much to gain from someone transitioning. There really is. Whether you're a caretaker, whether it's your loved one, whether it's your significant other, a friend, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's so much to be gained from that. It's an opportunity. Now you can go into a victim space or into your old traumas and stay in that space, into what you're familiar with, and that hurt. And it does hurt. I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt. I'm just saying that we don't have to stay there. And if you recognize there's always a gold nugget, there's always nuggets to pick up. There's always something that's to be brought forward from that experience. There's so much growth. I have grown so much since then. I've seen so much of myself, and some of the stuff I didn't really care so much about, but it brought awareness to what I was doing, how I was behaving, how I felt, why I felt the way that I did. If you're doing something that doesn't feel good, it feels shitty. If you feel shitty all the time, check in with yourself. And if you don't know where to begin, you just begin. You just start looking. You just start listening. It takes time, because for me in the beginning, for me to even listen to the words that were coming out of my mouth wasn't happening. It just wasn't happening, even as I was going through this whole process. And now I can witness a lot more of that, because there's so much nuggets for me as I'm giving out information for someone else. We always bring forward those in our lives that we think need our help, but they're coming into our lives to highlight the areas in us that we needed to help, so we can move forward. Because I keep having and asking, I want to do this. I want to help heal people. I want to help whatever it looks like. I want to help them on their paths, because it helps me on my path too.
Yeah, and just thinking about her journey with this cancer is, it's so common for a majority of the population that we're focused on survival, and we're so beat down by having to work and pay the bills and take care of everything, and that we forget the joys of life, or take time to create those joyful memories. So, in her experience, I know she had that stress type survival energy going on for a long time. I've known her for a while. And when she found out she had cancer, stopped working, start spending more time with her family, start doing things that she wanted to be doing, right? Because that's what they tell you when you have a terminal illness. They're like, you need to go do what you want to do all these years and go do it, right?
Yeah.
And so creating those memories with family, with friends, spending that time in those joyful moments. And I had a conversation with my son just the other day, and he was telling me, they're visiting in Mexico, and he's in a mastermind group, and in that mastermind group, there's somebody who has a place in Mexico. They're like, oh yeah, if you want to come stay at my place for a month, you're welcome to. I'm going to be gone. And I told him, I said, yeah, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And he goes, the more I'm in these groups of people and stuff, the more I realize it's about connection. It's about people. I'm like,
Totally.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
we're co-creators. We
Yeah.
can't do it by ourselves. You can go live in a cave your whole time, but you're not co-creating with anybody else. Well, is that necessarily true though? Because on the other side of that, we can co-create with spirit. Their spirit people are here. So it's not even, but the key to that is we're always co-creating. You talked about something, you talked about her being in survival. I was listening to a conversation the other day, and it really hit me that from the moment we are born, we're in survival mode. From the moment we are born. And is that not a truth? There was a footage of some sort of scientific experiment or something at one time that I think you can probably still find the video, where the child, a brand new baby that's born, is climbing up the mom to get towards the breast to get the milk. Survival. We were born into survival. We were born into an energy that globally has been about survival, not about thriving. So who changes that? We change it on each individual basis. We change it by celebrating when someone transitions back into the birth of spirit instead of being birthed into the human. It's just constantly recognizing this circle, that there's always this constant birth. Even for us existing right now, our old selves, they say, has to die, right? Our old beliefs, our old thoughts, our old everything, all of our old habits have to die in order to birth this new being in, or the night of the dark night of the soul, which is like a death of the person, old identity to a new identity. It's like it's always a birthing thing, but we don't celebrate things. So that's how we change things. We celebrate it by celebrating birth. We celebrate it by celebrating transitions of people's lives. And when we can be in that space of just sheer joy, and how do we get there? I feel like it's through following our intuition. It's going inside. It's where we can start all seeing that spirit people are still here with us. There's no separation, and how we're all co-creating together, even with our physical and the non-physical, like doing all these things, that shifts everything. We have such, that's why I feel like it's so beneficial for us. If we're doing this, if one person's doing this, it's making such a difference because we have such a huge team, because it's never just us. If we don't have the support of the humans going through this human experience, but we have all the support of the spirit, we still have all the support. There's more than just us. They help amplify all of our positive beliefs, or when we're going forward and creating, and we're trying to create better because we're trying to serve, and we want to do things for the greatest good. We have a huge amount of support that amplifies.
And we used survival to get us through the first part of our life, because that's what everybody around you knew how to do, and that's what they taught you to do. And now you can choose different. At whatever age you're at, you can choose different.
Absolutely.
It's learning. I've mentioned this a few times that I had to receive permission from somebody outside of myself to change my beliefs. I'm like, wait, what? You can change your beliefs? Wait, I was like in my 30s. So yeah, it doesn't matter what age, you can change your beliefs. You can change those. Of course, we need survival skills. We're not saying you don't need them. You need survival skills, but also in your growing of becoming a better version of your human self, you lean more into your intuitive senses, and those survival skills will be that intuitive message that says, don't walk down that road by yourself, or don't turn right, turn left, or right, call your mom. That becomes your survival skill of listening to your intuition, that's going to guide you in these directions to help keep you safe. And when you do, it's like flowing with life instead of always having your fists up ready to punch somebody in the throat. It's like or flying off the handle in anger, or hanging on to that shame and guilt. It's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that anymore. If you could just stop right here, right now, and tell your little girl, come back, sweetheart. We're okay. We're safe right here. And we don't have to hang on to that stuff anymore. And we can change it. We can change our beliefs and our patterns and our habits and our subconscious programming. And we have there's so many people on this planet to help us do that. We're okay. We're okay. We're safe right here, right now. Now, what direction do I want to move in? And just be open to that guidance.
I feel like when you're in that space, you're no longer in survival anyways. You're just automatically in, I'm going to have fun. When you're in that flow space, you're just flowing. To me, it's not even about survival anymore. Survival is out the window, because survival would be 3D perspective. We can be in that space, but we don't have to be in that space. Survival for what? We're all going to die. You brought up shame. We didn't say shame exactly, but like shame and grief and unworthiness. All those things are like, all these thoughts that we are thinking all the time are automatically breaking down this physical shell that we're in right now. It's automatically breaking it down. So then it's like, why would I do that when I could enjoy being here until I'm not here? It doesn't have to break the body down and do all these things, but by holding on to all this stuff inside the body, you don't let it go. Simple stuff. It goes back to the same thing. I was just talking to a person recently, and it's like, I know that if you just do these things, you'll start noticing a difference. But no, this person's going to go through all kinds of different doctors' testings and all these other things to find out what's going on. And if this helps, then it's something they want to, they got to do this machine, or that, or they're going to continue living with no sleep, or, you know, all these things. And it's like, it's so simple. And then I hear someone say something about stimulating the vagus nerve. Well, gosh, there's a million, I'm giving this person information. Well, when it comes down to it, then maybe we'll think about doing that kind of stuff. What are you talking about? You can stimulate your vagus nerve. Why not do it now? Look it up. VAGUS, and it's a nerve. Look it up. Look up ways that you can stimulate that. Look at what it does for the body. Look at how it can bring such peace and ease to the body just by knowing how to do humming, breathing, stretching. There's so many different things, but it's so easy to be in that mindset to just go to the doctor and take care of these things and not, it's like your intuition's completely shut off. You're so disconnected from self. But gosh, and I understand this. And at the same time, you just want to be, I just want to be happy. I just want to feel good. I just want to sleep at night. I just want rest. I just want whatever the whole thing is, whatever you're just wanting. You put yourself in this space, but you're, again, I'm raising my hand because I didn't want to meditate, because why? Because it would bring me into all these spaces. Probably because I was always a doer, right? If you look up Beverly, I think that list puts on her Beaver Meadow. It's a worker. It's like all these other things. It's constantly doing. That's a doing thing. So it was for me to come into this life and overcome the doing thing. And that's not always such an easy concept, even though doing meditation is so easy, but I'm not like, give me a freaking snow shovel and I'll clear all the snow off the concrete. Okay, I got this. That's easy. I can go out there and do that all day long, but I've always said that I can go out and I'll do manual labor before I'll sit and use my brain all day long, because it burns you out. But then I enjoy where I'm at right now. So, you know, it's just being in this journey to figure out, because now I'm in this space where, well, gosh, I used to do so much more before. I don't know how I managed to get done 40+ hours a week, taking care of a couple of kids, dinners, cleaning the house, doing the yard work, I was doing all these things.
Party, don't forget to party.
Yeah, don't forget to add a party in
Time
there
to
a few
party.
times. Yeah, and then survival for a few days after that party. So, I mean, but it's just interesting how much we change, and it's again looking at someone where they're at on their path, and maybe they don't want to grow beyond where they're at, and that's okay. It's okay. It's not for me to have a judgment for it, even though, like I said, sometimes when we get into these spaces, we know. And I guess I'm having this conversation is because if somebody's listening to it and they know what works, but it's not for us to force it upon someone else. It's not for us to tell them, I know what's better for you, then you know what's better for you. They have to become centered and drawn into themselves and want to follow these paths. Because sometimes if a person thinks that only a doctor is going to heal them, then only a doctor has that possibility of healing them. It will never be by anybody else, because it's not in their belief system. And that's why we talk about as many things as we talk about, because it's an opportunity for your growth. It's permission to go out and start exploring things. Maybe we said one single word that made you think, transcendental meditation. Wow, that's a crazy concept. I'm going to look up and see what that even means. And then that may not do it.
Tapping.
Yeah. Tapping. Yeah. It may not feel like it's anything at all, but then when you start to do it, it's something. The first time I had ever done tapping was with you, and we were tapping, and what came up was I was in 3rd grade, and I mean, from my adult perspective, I'm wondering if this even happened, but from my kid perspective, I knew this happened. That the teacher actually swung her arm back and it actually hit me in the stomach. I was sitting in a desk. So did she intend to do that? Did she intend to sweep the stuff off my desk? I don't know. Was I being an asshole? I don't know. I don't remember, because I would have had a different perspective. You're talking about a child that had been being sexually abused, and I was a different sort of bird by that time. So who knows? But I remember having such we're doing this tapping, and I was like so surprised, like we're doing this tapping. I'm like, what in the hell is going on here? Like, where is all this stuff coming from? And I felt the emotion that was in my body.
Yeah.
From 3rd grade. I was like 50 then, or 48 or whatever. It doesn't matter, but there's always something. It's like, give it a try. You just don't know until you've given something a try. until
Right.
it blows your mind.
Right. Yep. I mean, even hypnosis, people won't do hypnosis because they believe that you're going to be controlled and you're going to be in this space where you're, from a religious perspective, that you're going to be allowing the devil to come into your, and I'm just like, wait, what? We know that accessing the subconscious mind, you have to get into a certain state in order to do some reprogramming that is beneficial for your body. So for those habits that you've been trying to, or that you've been riding this roller coaster, you're overweight, you diet, you lose the weight, then you gain the weight, right? This roller coaster, it's just constant up and down. Or the person who wants to quit smoking, yeah, they do it for a little while and then they get triggered and then they dip down, right? It's constant roller coaster. It's because that subconscious programming, you got to do something to reprogram it. And if you're going to do it consciously, it's got to be very consistent. You cannot waver from the consistency of changing your subconscious mind. And if you can't do it consciously, then there is the subconscious that you can access through hypnosis. And you will not, hear me clearly, audience, that you will not, under hypnosis, do anything against your morals and values. You are 100% aware of what you are being asked or told to do when you are in a state of hypnosis. You are still aware of what is being said. So if you have been contemplating hypnosis, I would strongly encourage you to try it, not once, but 2 or 3 times, because it sometimes takes some time to get comfortable in that space, especially if you have such disregard for it, or if you've been told that it's not safe. Maybe give it 2 or 3 times to just even be able to relax into that the ability to allow the hypnotherapist to take you where, to do what needs to be done. So
I'm actually glad you kind of went off in that direction, because the other thing, because I've been on both sides of it. So I've been the one that was hypnotized, and I've also hypnotized. And it's an awesome thing. And I recognized it. I've only done a couple, but I've recognized like they were so far off from each other. Like one was so deep and doesn't remember anything, didn't want to record it. And it was an amazing, she's telling me the names of her guides. She was talking about what she did in between lives while she was in the spirit, and she doesn't remember any of this stuff. So for me, that's awesome, because I do remember it. And then to go to the other person that was really not ready to let go of control, was so open for the experience, but wasn't ready to let go. So to be in that space when you're not ready to let go, I knew that she was, because every time she would start drifting even more, she would start rubbing the blanket. So she would bring herself more into awareness more now. So she didn't allow herself to drift in this space. So something scared her, or on a deeper level, that she just wasn't willing to go that route yet. And that's why it is important to try it a few times. It is. And I would say that because I've been that person that was being hypnotized, and I had such an expectation of it. For me, I was going through Dolores Cannon's training, and then I decided to go get this QHHT session done, which was probably not ideal. I mean, it was perfect. It worked out perfectly. But in my mindset, here I am. I've got the script of Dolores's, and she goes through and how she tells you and everything like that. And now I'm basically judging, or I'm in a space of like, how is this going to go? She's going to be doing all the same things, which is not so far off from being in a class. Because if you're in a class, you kind of have an idea what's going to happen. This stuff, going to open. And there was I still had a lot of resistance in myself, even though I can tell you, I know I was on the right path, because I remember there was a vehicle that was in front of me as I'm driving there, and it said something along the lines that you're on the right path. Like I just happened to look up, and there it is, cuts right in front of me, and there it is. I had to see it. So I knew that I was all along, but then I started judging it and having expectations of everything afterwards, instead of going back to go do it again. Which I was going to go to another practitioner in California, and I just didn't go through with it. Because at that point I thought, well, I can still get this information going in through meditation, which I can. If
Yeah.
that's just another avenue. But at the same point, I can get it while I'm working on someone else because the information could come through even still.
Yeah.
So there's such an opportunity. It's not a one and done. And then it's really looking at yourself when you do feel like you're slamming the brakes on. And even though you're listening right now, we're planting seeds anyways into your subconscious. So I mean, it just automatically does. That's why I would say always pay attention to what you're digesting. Pay attention to what you're listening to. Pay attention to what you're looking at, what you're eating, how your behavior is, how you thrive, and what type of environment. Some people thrive under stress. Why do you thrive under stress? Is that an easy way for you to be distracted from everything else? You don't have to pay attention to yourself. I mean, there's just so many. I can throw out a million things for you to look at just because I've been looking at a million things. Just really having the experience.
Yeah. And I just feel like I need to mention that we actually go into that state of hypnosis at least twice a day, every single day, and more if you take a nap.
Yeah.
That's natural. It's just a very relaxed state. And it's that state just before you fall asleep and that state just before you wake up every single day, unless you have insomnia. So just be aware. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So I felt like I needed this to throw that out there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when we take the time to, well, even this meditation I'm doing, it's Joe Dispenza's meditation and it's 45 minutes and it might be like more like 50 or 52 minutes, but, it takes you through these different, it's like different sections of it. And one, you're doing some breathing, and others, you're doing some just being like she's like, you are nobody, you're no thing, there's no time. And so just being in that space. And then there's where you're using your visualization and you're amplifying that out. And then there's gratitude. Like this is a whole process in this meditation. And it just feels so good, and that even if nothing else came out of it, the fact that it just feels good is good, because it's so beneficial for my body, because it's relaxing, it's bringing in that good feeling and putting a smile on my face when I'm doing my visualization. My body, the cells of my body are receiving that gratitude. And it's just the benefit of just doing it is phenomenal. And you're talking about your friend or your client earlier. It's like, you got to understand what stress does to the body. And majority of the population, that is their issue, is the amount of stress that they have going on that is creating their physical issues. And what is it? It's there's a name for it. Idio. Do you know what I'm talking about? The diagnosis, idio. Shoot. Anyway, it just means they don't know what's wrong with you. I can't think of the word right now. But the actual term, the actual definition is, we don't know what's wrong with you. And it's an actual diagnosis. And when the first time I saw it or heard it, I was like, are you serious? Is this real? Are you serious? Doctors actually say this? And no kidding, it was on my husband's medical records. That word was on there, and I'm like, they don't know where it's coming from. And if they don't know, how are they going to solve it? Take another prescription, take this, take that. Okay, well, what if you meditated? What if you got into that space of relaxation? What if you let your little person know that it's safe? That little girl in me is safe. What if I didn't give so much time and attention to my past? and worrying about the future? What if I embraced right here, right now? What if I created more joyful moments with those people that I love and care about? What if I amplified the love for myself and that automatically pours out into other people? What if I'm in that space of relaxation and joy? What if all that was where I spent my time and attention? What would happen then? Probably wouldn't have the headaches. I know that was one of my biggest issues. You wouldn't have the headaches. You wouldn't have, probably wouldn't have the aches and pains. Your body would be able to heal quicker because you're in a state of relaxation. Stress is so damaging. And the doer is stressed because they don't want to be with themselves. And if they slow down, then they're not proving their worthiness, and they're you know, I gotta prove that I'm worthy of your love and acceptance. Even though mommy and daddy's not standing there anymore while you're shoveling the snow, right? And you're 40 years old doing this, and they've transitioned or wherever they're at on the other side of the world, but you're still having to prove yourself to them. You're stressed. You are still stressed out trying to prove your worthiness to these adults that aren't even in your physical environment. Isn't that interesting? That's what makes me so intrigued. I'm just so intrigued on how we operate.
Yep. Because they'll keep going in that space. They'll keep going, honestly. And it's self-created in a lot of ways. It may have been introduced to you early on, but you kept it going this whole time. And how do you know? Sit down with that inner child of yours and ask what's going on. Like, what's wrong? Why are you reacting this way? Why do you feel this way? What does it even matter? And then how do you know? Awareness to thought and being aware of the words that we're using. How many times you hear people, well, I can't get my mind to stop. It just keeps going and going. I can't meditate. I can't do this. But your words are keeping you from it. It may be a block right now, but it doesn't mean that that's not what's creating the block. So it's again at checking in with self, changing your words. It's being aware of what our magical words we're using today. Meditation's easy. I'm starting to figure it out. I didn't do anything today, but I took a lot of breaths. I didn't do anything today, but I chanted for 20 minutes. I didn't do anything today, but gosh, for some reason I feel better. It's just little things, and not having an expectation how it's going to turn out. It could blow your mind. Sometimes it's great when you meditate. It's like it's overly amazing. I mean, I would say it's great every time you meditate, but sometimes you have more mystical, magical stuff that really floats your boat. And then sometimes it's a little bit quieter that day. So it's not a big deal. It's just taking the time for yourself, having an awareness for self, and honoring that little child inside of yourself. Asking that little child what's going on.
Yep.
That's it.
That's all we got today. Hope you got
That's
something
right.
out of it. If anything, Bev and I had our own therapy session, so we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm solid. I'm taking on I could take on the day now.
I know. Like, maybe we should just meet every single morning and get your mind right. Get your mind right, sister.
That's right.
That's what meditation helps us do. Just saying.
That's right. It does really help.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Tea Time with Amy and Bev. We'll see you next week.
Have a wonderful week.